We just wanted to come on real fast to share everything that's been going on. It has been an absolute emotional roller coaster the past couple days.
Kind of like a nightmare.
Honestly, a true nightmare. I felt like at one point, for sure, my mom was dead, and I had to go home and find her. She's been missing, to be very honest, and so to me, I felt like, oh, she must be dead. And then, my sisters talked me off a ledge. And honestly, I've just been really worried about my mom. And
after we got tickets to go back up there.
Yeah, we bought tickets to go home because I was like, I have to go drop my kids off at my in-laws so that we can go up safely without them. I don't want them to be, around this type of turmoil.
And this was the first time that I ever had to go through something like this. I know that this happened to you a bunch. And I can't imagine how emotionally taxing and stressful it is, and I only got a taste of it.
Well, the thing about it though is that everybody, I feel like, has been through this before, where you think someone is dead or they're missing, and you panic, of course, but you don't even have concrete evidence. And so, anyways, needless to say, Doug has to run to grab the kids right now, but I'm gonna share, just what happened this past couple days. Came inside, Doug just left, so I just kissed him goodbye. He went to go get the kids, but I don't even really know what to say, to be very honest, because I'm already emotional. It's ridiculous. I don't even know what to say, to be honest, because this type of a thing has happened before where my mom disappeared, but So here's what happened. I have a long time now not been able to get a hold of my mom at certain times when she's, she's an addict. And so when she's using, she'll kind of just turn off her phone and disappear. And the problem with that is that we're obviously not sure if she's dead or alive. If she's missing, should we be worried? Should we call the cops? We don't know what to do for my mom's safety because no one can get a hold of her. And so I had reached out to her and I said, hey, Mom, I don't mind, you do you, around my dog. I was like, do whatever you're doing, but can you please just let us know, if there's is there anybody I could call who will know what you're doing if I can't get a hold of you, just to let me know that you're safe and that you're alive and well and, not to go, put a search warrant out or whatever. And she gave me one of her friends' names and numbers, and my mom actually came to my daughter's birthday party once, and she brought this friend, so I've known this friend. When my nephew Jamie was in the hospital, I went up there and I met up with my mom and this friend of hers. And so anyways, on Monday, we hadn't been able to get a hold of my mom for the whole weekend, which isn't completely abnormal. The last time I talked to her was Friday night, and prior to that, she had been in the hospital in the ER. She had MRSA. She has had asthma attacks where she can't even breathe, and she has been complaining that she's really having a hard time, she feels very sick. And so, I hadn't talked to her since Friday night, and then on Monday morning, for the friend that she said, oh, my daughter's here now.
How was Becky? No, what was today?
Can we ride on scooters or go to Urfer?
You want to go to the park? Okay, we can see about that.
I put my bow in.
Oh, I like your bow. It looks beautiful, Henley.
Beautiful. I don't know about all the way to the park, but we can ride it at the park. Yeah, Rexaboo. What?
What?
Three.
What?
To tell you the whole story, my mom and I, have had a rough relationship where I haven't always supported her, and I feel like she hasn't always supported me, even though she says that she has. But I gained custody of my siblings when I was younger. My older sister also gained custody. We've shared custody of our younger siblings. My mom is such a good person. She will literally give the shirt off her back to literally anyone. I mean, if you met my mom, you would be like, wow, that woman is the nicest woman I've ever met. She's also been someone who, it's the most odd thing, because someone who is such a great person, but then she will leave her kids to go hang out with her friends. It's bizarre. It's a very bizarre thing being her child. But the biggest thing I want to say is that I love my mom. I know she loves us, and she struggles with addiction, which many people have and many people will. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. And when I was younger, I was very bitter about that. I knew that I felt like I knew that she was choosing drugs over us kids, and that she was choosing drugs and it was ruining her life. And I felt like if I could just convince her to stop using drugs, our life would be better. And, you know, I am no saint. And it got to a point where I kind of just didn't really disown her entirely. But I mean, if you watched Married at First Sight, if you saw my vow renewal, I mean, we didn't have like a very happy relationship. I wasn't trying to, you know, be gentle or kind to my mom or even try to understand where she was coming from. I felt like she was being selfish and a narcissist for choosing drugs over her family. And she did some things that I really didn't like to my siblings, and it made me very angry with her. And so I just felt like in order for me to survive in life, I needed to kind of separate myself from her. As I started getting older, I just started realizing, oh, well, I only have one mother. Somehow she birthed me and raised me and my siblings, and that's not easy. And especially after becoming a mother, I realized how hard it is to be a mother. I mean, it is such a hard job just to be a parent. And my mom had 5 of us. But my relationship with my mom has been really, really tough. And I've really tried to kind of put a boundary up because, you know, she's hurt us all, me and all my siblings, so many times. And I don't think she does it on purpose, but it doesn't matter if it's on purpose or not. It still hurts, you know, when she just goes and disappears and we can't get a hold of her and we're like, are you dead or are you alive? If you are alive, are you safe? Are you being hurt? Are you what's going on? Will we ever see you again? Where the heck are you? And this has been happening throughout my life many, many, many times, to the point where it you know, I started saying, hey mom, can you just tell me one person I could get a hold of if I can't get a hold of you, just to make sure that you're okay. And I don't even care what you're doing, but just, you know, just so I know that you're alive, so I'm not stressed. And so she gave me a friend's number who she hangs out with often, one of her best friends. I guess it was Monday morning, bright and early. I literally hadn't looked at my phone. I just got kissed the kids goodbye because Doug takes them to school and picks them up from school. Kissed them goodbye, sat down, looked at my phone, and I saw a message from this one friend that my mom said that if I ever need to get a hold of my mom and I can't get a hold of her, that she's the person to reach out to, because she always knows where my mom is. They're best friends. They used to live together at one point. And this woman reached out to me and said, hey Jamie, please call me. And I was like, obviously my stomach sank, because I was like, oh my gosh, my mom's been sick with MRSA and she has terrible asthma attacks where she cannot breathe. If you know anything about MRSA, it's an infection that can go into the bloodstream. It can be fatal and it's very difficult to control. So by 8, after Doug takes him to school, I looked at my phone. I was like, oh my gosh, she said to call her. So of course the first thing I did was call her, and I could hear the panic in her voice. First of all, she has never, ever called me or told me to call her saying that she's worried about my mom. Never, ever, ever has this ever happened. And I could hear the panic. I feel like I'm going to cry just reliving it. But I could hear the panic in her voice. And she was like, I'm really worried about your mom. It's been a couple days now and I haven't heard from her. And, her car's not here and I don't know where she could possibly be. And I was like, if she doesn't know where she is, how could I know where she is? Surprisingly, she's actually texted me on Friday a very odd message. She literally texted me oops, someone's at the door, gotta go, which is odd. No one ever texts someone's knocking at the door. They just stop texting back, So it was clear that my mom was trying to stop the conversation with me, I guess, but I was like, okay, whatever, at least she messaged me kind of thing. But 2 days later, or 3 days, I instantly thought my mom was dead. I fell to the ground crying. I called and booked the flights for my family to go up there, and I had emailed my daughter's teacher, she's gonna be out of school. I was 100% ready to go until my sisters talked me off a ledge, and they were like, even if she is dead, what are you up here? What's that gonna do? Most people would be like, well, why didn't you call the cops? And if anybody's ever struggled with a family member who has an addiction problem, I guess you learn pretty quickly on that you don't call the cops, because that doesn't help them trust you. It doesn't help them want to tell you if they're in trouble, if they need anything. So I didn't want my mom to feel like I betrayed her. It's the most bizarre thing. And I feel like the only people who could really even understand that is someone who has a loved one with addiction. But anybody else, would be like, you're crazy, you should have just called the cops. And I get that. But the thing is that I was like, I cannot do that to my mom because, if she's dead, well then there's nothing we can do about it anyways. But if she's alive and she's found with paraphernalia and stuff, I just don't want to be the person to call. Like, I don't want, she'll hate me, like, forever. Like, she will, and for, an odd thing is I don't want my mom to hate me, like, I don't want that. So my siblings and I all came together. We decided we weren't going to call the cops, but after a couple days, we were going to try to get into the apartment. If she wasn't dead, were we going to call the cops? Like, do we think she's safe? Like, it was just literally, like, just such an emotional time. Just my mom's missing, and she could be dead, she could be alive, she could be hurt. No one who's with her, I have no idea who she's with. It was very, very, very confusing. I really am proud of my siblings and I, because I feel like we really came together as a family, and it reminds me of when we were younger, because we always came together as a family, like my siblings and I anyways. We are definitely like a team, and we really respect and listen to each other, and that feels really good. And not for nothing, but my mom birthed us all, and she raised us. And so having a mom who has been in the cycle of this, if we don't talk about it and we don't shed light on it, how is it ever going to get resolved? I mean, that has been like the one thing in my life that I've discovered, is that if you share your skeletons in your closet, you realize that you're not the only one with those skeletons in your closet. And the one thing that I've learned now, 36 years old, having kids of my own, is that not one person using drugs is doing it because they're a bad person. Not one person using drugs is doing it to be hateful towards another person. People who use drugs are so hurt. They feel isolated, they feel alone, they feel like no one understands them. They feel like that's their only escape, that's their only source of happiness and content, not even necessarily happiness, but just contentment. And it took me a really, really long time to understand that, especially with my own personal relationship with my mother. But my mother is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. She is the kind of person that if you went to her and said, hey, I don't even know you, but I really need $20. Would you give me $20? My mom would be like, oh, here's $20. Yeah, you can have that. But yet she doesn't come to Christmas, and she barely ever, I don't think she even knows, like, I love my mom to death, but I don't think she even knows when my kids were born. She definitely didn't see them. She's only seen my son maybe once or twice as long as he's been alive. What I'm trying to get across here is that drugs are the enemy. It's not the person who's using them. And we need to love that person who's using them. I think it's so important to also have boundaries, and to not just be like, oh yeah, use your drugs, come over here, see me, see my kids. Of course I'm not going to be like, hey ma, come on over, move on in. But like, something that I'm trying to get better at, and I've talked to my therapist a lot about, is just how to love my mom unconditionally, knowing that she is going to use drugs. That is what that's what she does, and that's okay. And how do I let my mom know that I no longer judge her, and how do I apologize for judging her for this? My mom was just looking for like a release. She was just looking for contentment. She was looking for friends who also needed a release, and so she found them in people who also use drugs. I hope that anybody who might be using, including my mom, if they're watching this, oh my gosh, if it was my mom watching this, I would want to say that I love you more than you love you. And that is your kids love you more than you love you. And we want to show you that. And we don't care if you're using, and I don't, this isn't for everyone, but for my siblings, and my mom is nearly 60 years old. If she's going to use, I don't care. Like, you do what you have to do, but I want you to know that you are unconditionally loved. And of course, if you are using, well, then there has to be boundaries, because I don't want my kids to be exposed to that. But I do want you to know that you are so loved, and you are so worthy, and you are so appreciated. And there are times I cannot get a hold of you at all. And it scares me that you're dead. And I've told you that so many times before, but ultimately, I hope you're safe, and if you ever need anything, that you can reach out to any of your kids, any of us, and we would be there for you. And I'm still like a work in progress. I'm not at all on here like, oh, let me tell you how you can love your drug addict family member, because it's hard. It's so hard, but I'm trying. And for anybody else who struggles with addiction, or someone who, knows someone who struggles with addiction, I would just want to say, like, hang in there. In the midst of sharing that story, I was a complete mess, and I didn't want to just be a complete mess on there. And now it's a whole, then we got other news that our offer was accepted for a house, which was good, yes. But I never did finish sharing. Like, yes, we found my mom. Well, we didn't. That one friend found my mom.
Which is great news.
Yeah, and she, of course, you know, was at someone's house in a different city, and I have no idea really what she was doing.
But she's alive.
But she's alive, and she seems happy, and so that's good. And that's like the absolute emotional roller coaster of being related to someone, your mother, you know,
Yeah.
who's an addict.